Today, Tristan from More Beer Than Barra, part 2 of our territory trip. We're leaving Darwin now, so we've been in Darwin eating and drinking basically for 5 days, had a ball. But we're going to start heading back towards WA now. And with the late wet season that we've had this year, just after Easter, a lot of the national parks and a lot of the tourist sites are still underwater, and the roads are still closed and the tracks are still closed. Just about everything in Kakadu National Park is closed. So you would usually expect it to be opening up this time of year, but they've had just a really late, big wet season this year. The whole north of Australia has. So on our way back now, we think that tonight we can find a campsite on one of the following rivers: the Cullen, the Fergusson or the Edith rivers. So I've spent the last couple of days Google mapping, and having a look on Google Maps, there seems to be opportunities and tracks around those 3 rivers, and the area that we're looking at is between Pine Creek and Katherine. So we're going to spend today having a look around those 3 river areas, and hopefully we'll find a nice spot for the night, and then we'll move into Katherine tomorrow for the rest of the journey back to WA. So we'll see how we go. But in the meantime, we're just going to be driving through the last little, well, not the last little bit, we've got to get out of Darwin, and that will be the last traffic that we see for quite a long time living in Kununurra. This is the first track that we've found near the Fergusson River. So we're just going to have a bit of a drive around and see what we can find. So how's this nice little spot? Literally just off the Stewart Highway, down a couple of 4-wheel drive tracks. Got real potential, this spot. We're going to do a bit more exploring before we decide, but I'll tell you what, nice little fishing hole here. Spot number 2. Not quite as accessible as the other spot. Still very nice. This is a creek that runs off the Edith River in Nipmuc. Might just chuck a few soft plastics in and see if there's anything in there. So as you can see, a beautiful, beautiful little creek. But unfortunately, the wet season means it's very overgrown and there's not a lot of great access to the river. So the fishing's probably not that good. Well, it's not going to be that easy, that's for sure. And makes camping difficult as well. But wow, this is a beautiful spot, all right. When you drive through long grass like we just did, you got to check underneath your car and make sure you clear it out, because stuff like that, if the car gets hot, it can set fire to bits of dry grass, and then the next thing you know, your car's caught fire. So you always need to check underneath and get rid of any bits of grass. There's some more I'm going to have to get underneath the car and grab as well. You have to really watch out for it. It's dangerous stuff. Well, we ended up coming back to the Fergusson River, the first spot that we found. The reason for that is it's got the best access to the water, best fishing opportunities, and we just liked it the most. We love this spot. I mean, we've been spoilt for beautiful campsites, but this is up there. We're not even that far from the Stewart Highway, actually. So we're roughly halfway between Pine Creek and Katherine. And this is just a small little four-wheel drive track that we found that led down to the river. And fishing's been all right. We've caught quite a few sooties this evening, but we're not going to bother eating those. We're just going to put them back as live bait and hopefully hook a bigger barramundi, and we reckon this is a big enough, deep enough hole for there to be a few barra in there. But I'll say that every time. So we're doing Abbott's famous steaks, Abbott's famous campfire steaks. We're going to flame grill these ones, and basically these are 60 minutes either side, or not 60 minutes, 60 seconds, 60 seconds either side. And I'm going to drag them this way a bit as well, I think. And then after they've had 60 seconds each side, you rest them. Before you put them on as well, you dress each side in oil, salt and pepper as well. We'll come back to it in a minute. Okay, round two for these steaks. So they get a second set of 60 seconds now on the flame grill. And again, 60 seconds each side. Big one needs a bit more heat. Okay, we're just going to have a look inside one of these steaks and see whether they need another round of cooking after 2 rests.
No, that's right. This one's a bit
Big
thicker.
chunk. Yeah, open it up so we can see inside. Perfect. Look at that. That's what you want. Another 30 seconds rest and they'll be sweet. Abbott's famous campfire steaks, flame grills. Right, I'm going to turn this off now because the bugs are coming. Wait. Well, here's a nice little spot we found exploring tracks around Katherine, not too far from Nipmuc National Park actually. You can see some nice potential campsites around here. We've got accommodation in Katherine tonight, but I'd happily check this out in dry season. When we come back, and a little road crossing here. So you could actually get your car across and up there. A bit boggy at the moment, but in dry season it should be sweet. Nice little spot. Okay, so we've left Katherine and we're heading southwest on the Victoria Highway. We're heading back towards Western Australia. We're about 500 kilometres from home. And we're really well and truly on the home leg now, so not much longer to go until the trip's done and dusted. But we've got one more overnight stop left, and that's going to be on the Victoria River, not too far from Timber Creek. We did stop there on the way up, on the way up to Darwin, but we didn't look at it very much. We basically got there in the dark, slept, and left first thing in the morning. So we like the look of that spot. We're going to have a good look at it today, and I think it's probably going to be our best chance of a barramundi on this trip as well, because it's a big open water river not too far from salt water country. So we should be able to get bait there, we should be able to throw a few lures across the surface, and fingers crossed we'll have some good fishing. The weather is starting to look like dry season weather as well. It was cool this morning in Katherine, so we can sense the dry season almost here. And Emma can maybe just get a look at the King River, as this is the King River that we're just crossing now. Just on your, just coming up here. So that's the King River, and yeah, we're heading towards the Victoria River now. So we'll get some footage as we go through the Victoria Valley again, or the Victoria River Valley, and we'll speak to you again at camp. Well, here's a place I'm definitely coming back to. Stunning scenery, but on top of that I can see loads of bait fish. I chucked a popper lure in for a couple of casts. Got hit a few times, but I would love to come back, camp for the night, catch some live bait and put them into this river and see how we go. I suspect you do pretty well. I will be back to this spot. So this is the place that we stopped at on the way up, but as I said before, it was dark, we didn't see much of it, and we sort of just pulled up and left. Today, because we got more time and more light in our hands, we're able to play around a little bit and do a bit more exploring. So we found this site today, or this track, and we're going to follow it down, and we know we're getting close to the river here. See if we can find ourselves a good campground with some good fishing access. Not a big fan of driving through this long grass, but a lot of options. But so far, so good. We're going to angle over a little bit here, okay? Whee.
You've been up this one before.
Welcome to camp on the Victoria River, not too far from Timber Creek. And this is going to be our last camp in the Northern Territory for this trip. We'll be back across the WA border tomorrow and back home. But what a spot for our last night. Take your pick of which was your favourite from this trip. I find it very hard to separate. Now, this is the coolest evening we've had by a long way. It's starting to really feel like dry season now. And we might actually need the fire for warmth tonight. Woke up this morning and it was actually a bit cool and crisp in Katherine. So frustrating days fishing though. Got my cast net caught on the rocks and it's dangerous, and I'm trying to get it back out again, looking out for crocs, and the fishing's just not been happening for me this trip. But I'll tell you what, look at that view, who cares? I'm going to grab a beer and enjoy it. A lot of fire, cooked dinner, $1 million view. One of the things that we've trialled on this trip is the 18 electric volt battery powered chainsaw. It's only a little tacker. It's not going to do any serious chainsawing, but it's just a really good alternative to cutting up firewood with an axe or a saw, which is really hard work. and you don't want to be doing that when you're chilling out. And the added bonus is you don't have to carry around a lot of petrol or fuel or mix up, you know, 2-stroke with petrol. You just have a couple of these batteries. They're good for about, well, it's supposed to be 90 odd cuts. I reckon in reality you'll get a good half a dozen to 2 dozen cuts. So just goes in as simple as that. Runs perfectly. And simple as that. So that saves you a lot of bother around camp when you want sort of good campfire size bits of wood. It's a winner. We actually bought 2 of these chainsaws. They only cost around $100 from Bunnings. And we take one chainsaw with us and we take both batteries so that we've got a backup battery if this one goes flat. So yeah, so far it's worked really well for us. We'll probably keep doing that now, especially as we go into dry season. Okay, you'll see that we're passing the Keep River National Park entrance again. So we're about a couple of kilometres from the state border. And when we get to the state border to go into WA, they'll actually stop our car, get out, and they'll actually, a couple of police officers will actually process us. So they'll check our ID, they'll check that we've got the correct G2G permit pass to cross the WA border. And it's really quite thorough. I said before, it's comparable to back in the days of international flight travel where you had to have your passport checked by customs. It's a very similar process, just as thorough. So you can see that hill up ahead. That's pretty much that's the point where the Northern Territory meets WA. And something I have to do as well is get used to driving at a way slower speed, because the WA speed limits are only 110 maximum. So we've been used to driving at 130 the whole time. But you'll see ahead here, we're approaching the state border checkpoint now. And it's pretty full on. Never used to be anything like this. They just used to ask if you had any fruit vegetables in your fridge for the agricultural quarantine, but now it's obviously, this is one of the front lines of defence for West Australia's coronavirus situation. You can see that shed up ahead there, that's where we'll be asked to stop, and we'll actually have to get out of the car. So here we are in WA at the checkpoint. And yeah, we'll stop filming now because we're going to be spoken to.